AJ Croce going to be in concert Thursday, May 16th, 2024 at Hawaii Theater. Tickets on sale, hawaiitheater.com. I am curious about your songwriting process. Do you work with people with lyrics, with the music? Do you have Ray Charles as someone that you harmonize with, when you're doing your
So,
original pieces?
so it's different for all sorts of songs. Sometimes I'll sit down at the piano and I'll find a melody that's really nice, or chord structure that's interesting. Sometimes I'll have a turn of phrase or an expression that gets turned on its head, and it works as a title or a theme or a story. To be honest, I've done a lot of co-writing with a lot of people. Um, and for example, when I wrote a lot with Leon Russell, and when I wrote with Leon Russell, my the way we usually did it was I would send Leon music and sing a melody, and then about an hour later, I'd get like 20 verses and two chorus options and a couple bridge options. I mean, and we turn them around like that. Sometimes towards the end of our writing, it was a little more collaborative. You
Mhm.
know, he might go, "Hey, why don't check out this chord or something?" And most, even though we both live in Nashville, a lot of times, we were both on the road. So I was sending him something from a stage, taping it on my phone, and he was doing the same. I just wrote recently with John Oates for a project, and for his new record, and that was a really unique, very collaborative process where he had a concept, an idea for something, and it was the chorus. And I switched the time of it because he was feeling like it might be a little more gospely. So we change it from 4/4 into 6/8, and all of a sudden we had this story, and it was really beautiful. And we perform it very differently. His version is really uniquely his, and mine is mine, and yet the song seems to sort of stand on its own either way. So it can happen so many ways.
I find that so fascinating when, full disclosure, I am just an appreciator, consumer of music. I'm not a great critic. But I'm not a singer-songwriter or anything, but I really am so curious how people discover various disciplines and they're able to just move forward with it. Some people, like, I get to work at a radio station. I worked at a record store. So
Uh-huh.
I know my lane. It's a wide lane,
Yeah.
but I know my lane. Um, for you, you were a collaborator and still are,
Mhm.
co-writer and musician. Sometimes you appear on various albums, but you have like a solid catalog that continues. Chicken Skin again. You're
Mhm.
very prolific. When did you know, or did you always know that you were someone to be the lead or to have your own music up front, where some people are more comfortable being a session musician or being part of the band rather than being AJ Croce
Mm.
and band.
I think there was I've had a lot of different I've worn a lot of different hats, no pun intended,
Mhm.
in my career for a lot of different reasons. Mostly because I need to make a living playing music. That's what uh, my options are. So, when I was very young, I started very young. I just played keys in the band. And regardless of whether it was a rock and roll band or a jazz group or a R&B group or whatever it was. And then I really wanted to be able to perform original music, and started writing at a pretty young age.
Yeah.
My first session, I was 17. I was living in San Diego. That summer, I had been somewhere, and Mae Axton, who wrote Heartbreak Hotel, heard me play, and she told her friend Cowboy Jack Clement, who was the producer for Sun Records and for Elvis and Jerry Lee and Roy Orbison and of course Johnny Cash, who we worked with for many years after that. That he should hire me. And he did. And so my very first recording session, real recording session, was for Cowboy, and that was in Nashville. So he flew me down, and I walk in, Jerry Lee Lewis walks out. I don't know. I'm filling in for him. And this is like so crazy to me. And it's James Burton is sitting at the on the couch. James Burton's guitar player for Elvis in 1968, and Jerry Sheff is on bass. It's Elvis's band sitting there, Ron Time, and now I get chills. So like thinking back about and it was for me, it was that was how it started. But then I was writing my own music. Cowboy wanted to hear it, and I wasn't real. Um, I sort of developed in a individually. Each talent developed on its own. You know, my singing and my piano playing and my songwriting, they were all kind of coming up in their own way. And I think I was a stronger piano player for at first. You know, and then the songwriting came, and it. I think it just kind of developed. By the time I was, when I was 18, I started to have a good number of songs that were pretty solid, and I was the only one that was going to be able to sing them. And simultaneously, BB King heard me and asked if I'd go on the road. So I started opening for him and then sitting in on a song or so. I didn't have an agent, a manager, didn't have any of the business stuff happening. By the time we got from Vancouver to LA, I had half of that stuff and was looking for a record deal. And by the time I was 19, I signed. It took a little while to develop the rest of the songs after signing and making sure that it was all right. And so that's how it happened. And then once that happens, then you're like, well, label wants you to make another record, and you've got to, and you're on a roll. And it's like, I feel like at the time I felt like everything was going so slow. I wanted to do all of this stuff, and I loved so many types of music, and the idea of being in a box or pigeonholed into one style of music, because I love to play as a musician so many types of genres of music. But as an artist, you got to kind of stick to it, and that was so hard for me because the musician in me wanted to be challenged constantly by new things, the performer in me. And so, it all kind of develops. I think that the secret of this show is the storytelling. My father was not just a wonderful storyteller in his songs and his music, but on stage as a performer. It's the piece of this show that I love sharing with the audience. I don't think they know, because most people hadn't had the chance to see my father in those 18 months. He was mostly an opening act. And then it was only in the last few months of his life that he was headlining. And so it happened very quickly, and very few people saw him in the scheme of things. So it was, compared to how many people bought his records, it was a very small number. It ended up being so powerful. I think the stories of the songs and being able to sort of convey his perspective and what was happening in his life and in my parents' life and so forth, just made it really special. Which I should say that we have a very special guest coming to Hawaii to meet us, and it's gonna sing a couple songs with us. I'm not gonna give it away, but
Okay.
it's a special treat.